kind of technology intervention can be applied, and what do we see today in the various technology developments that we've seen, and consequently what's the conclusion that one might draw from all these technical developments. I'm one of the few people in the industry who actually has a healthy disrespect and disregard for technology. Because many a times we are passionately in love with the sound of our own voice and our own ideas, so much so that we even forget sometimes that there is a real life human being in front of us who is actually a patient. So we're so carried away by the technology that we sell that we feel that our technology will cure dementia once and for all. So we try to balance that by me trying to put a little bit of brakes on some of the wild ideas we see and have. I will share some of them with you. If you feel like laughing, please have a good laugh. Laughter is a good medicine. Okay? So moving on, I don't want to talk more about dementia. I think you've been hearing from probably all the other speakers as well. But look at what is the impact of dementia. There's a new person that we believe is being diagnosed as a patient with dementia. It will go from, the number of people will grow from 50 million, in 2015 I think it was, to about 150 million by 2050. So there's a huge burden of care that we will have to deliver for these patients. It's in terms of economic cost, it's about $2 trillion. That's what it is. In China itself, sometime by that time, it's supposed to be about 1.6 trillion industry requiring services. That's the kind of impact we're talking of. What I remember is China will have by 2035 or 2040, 440 million people over the age of 65. And by that same time, India would have about 180 million, with assorted countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all over 200 million people each. You add all of that up together, Asia will have 1.2 billion people, elderly. And of that, there is a growing prevalence of dementia, as you're all aware. I don't want to labor that point again, but that's the kind of challenge that we are facing in terms of delivering interventions, because we are never going to have enough number of nurses or healthcare providers to settle and satisfy that demand. In addition to all of that, the biggest challenge, of course, is the physical, emotional, and the financial stress that the patient faces. Not wanting to again belabor this point too much, but I think there are various types of symptoms that you see, the PTSD, but the biggest one of them is the cognitive decline that seems to affect everyone in the space. And we try to see how we can apply technology to help alleviate some of those problems. And I use that word very carefully, alleviate, because we can't solve it for sure. The other metric that we are tracking is that 60% of people living in the community will have dementia in that group, and about 80% of those living in a residential facility will have dementia. So it's a very high number that we're looking at. So what can we do? I think we can't solve it for sure, but we can certainly try to help the people who are trying to solve or who are trying to provide care. And so let's look at dementia management, where it stands today. Today, I think there is no cure. I think this was a study done by Cleveland Clinic, which says 96% of the drug trials are rather useless and pointless at this point in time. It's quite a challenging thing to say, but that's what Cleveland Clinic has tracked. So what can we do? We can do prevention. We can do early detection and diagnosis. We can do a little bit of treatment of the symptoms, and eventually the management. If you look at all of this, it's not very difficult to apply technology to each of these cases, and I'll elaborate a little more on this and where does technology play. So for example, early detection and diagnosis, not a day goes by when I find a startup that comes to my office and says, I have this miracle tool that will help you 99.99% accurately diagnose a person with dementia. And we look at it and say, okay, has anyone certified it? They say, no, we are in the process of certification. So in Singapore alone, I have seen about 4 or 5 such players who are looking to provide some kind of diagnostic tool that will actually help provide another perspective on where that assessment leads to. If I go from that to the various technology interventions, you can look at these technology interventions in the four bucket that we spoke of: prevention, early detection, treatment, and management. The first one in terms of prevention is training and games. If you look at the kind of tools that are available today, they can help people with the memory, aiding tools, and some of those which we can look at later. So if you look at brain training, there is one called MedTrain. I'm just quickly going to give you some of these examples. This presentation is already there with you, so you can give to the others if you're interested in some of these players and these companies. Just to add, I don't make any money from any of these companies. So if you want to talk to them or you want to read up about them, please feel free. I just compiled this with the help of my strategy team to put this together. So there is MediTrain, which has a cognitive training game. Then we have body brain trainer that targets the heart rate and cognitive abilities. And you have a virtual attention trainer that basically provides them some amount of training of the mind for spatial and temporal attention abilities. So that's the kind of games that are available today for the older adults. Moving on to the cognitive assessment, if you look at it, while it can't be cured, is true. I can certainly find out the early onset of dementia, for example, through a Mind-Eye project. What it does is it gauges the reaction time of the eye to some of the visual stimuli that is provided, and based on that, they can actually provide a diagnosis and confirm whether there is an early onset. Similarly, NeuroTrack is the other one. It's a computer-based cognitive test, and it also uses the eye movement to measure and also look at the recognition of the objects that are shown in rapid succession. So it talks of the recognition as well. Right. The treatment, now this is more interesting. This is directly an area where Napier does some work, so I'm happy to share that as my first-hand experience. While we are looking to provide face-to-face, while healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, and everyone else is looking to provide a face-to-face experience for the patient, but many a times the patient does not want to come out of their homes. So how do you reach them in the comfort and confines of their homes? So there is something called an RPM, or the remote patient management. What it is essentially a telemedicine platform. So the telemedicine platform allows the physician or the nurse to do a teleconsult. The teleconsult can involve a video session, it can involve some of the questions. They also see how the patient is actually in their own home surroundings, and then get a very good idea of how the patient is responding. And it also alleviates a lot of stress in the patient for having to come to a facility and be seen by a doctor or a nurse and so on. The way it works is there is an IoT platform for those of you who are technically inclined. There is an IoT platform that we've developed, and the IoT platform is actually deployed as an app on the mobile phones of the people at home. So if someone were to take, for example, a blood pressure or a glucometer or any of those readings, or for that matter some of the other devices that are there, those readings then by Bluetooth get transmitted into the mobile, from the mobile into our app, and someone sitting at a central facility can see how those readings are progressing, or for that matter not progressing well, and then they can have a teleconsult with the patient. So this is a very useful tool because it then prevents the patient from having to come to the facility, and coming to a healthcare facility is always fraught with a lot of challenges, including least of all the challenge about transmission of infection. So that's one of the key reasons. Right. The other one I spoke of is the Internet of Medical Things. Internet of Medical Things, actually, as you can see, there is a panic button, door lock, lighting solution, motion sensor, and pretty much anything and everything. You can pin the person down and find out every minute of the day where they are, what they are doing, have they fallen asleep, for example, while watching TV. So you can put up a motion sensor which will triangulate this room, and if I'm sitting in the same place for about 3-4 hours and the TV is on, then you can make an assessment that they probably switched on the TV and went to sleep, for example. Or in the case of a fall risk, if someone's fallen and they are in the bathroom for more than 10 or 15 minutes, you can actually find that out and you can send a note to their children or the caregiver saying that this has happened. They could then make a call and then decide whether you should call for an ambulance or not. So those are some of the things that you can do with the Internet of Medical Things. Today, technology is rather powerful. It can reach a person anywhere and anytime. I always say this, we all think even if we turn off our handphones, we should be okay. No one can track where we are, especially if you're driving. There is an in-vehicle unit, so that can be traced and you can be tracked anywhere you are, even if you turn your phone off and throw anything off. Today, everybody is traceable everywhere, no matter which nook and corner of the world you go to in any country, regardless of how good the governance is. So we shall not talk about China, for example, where they can find out your face in a crowd of 100,000 people and then identify who you are and where you were and what are you doing 1 hour before and what are you doing an hour later. So technology can be that intrusive or invasive depending on how the application is. Right? So we talk of other things like, for example, sensor in the socks. This is one, and then there is a smart soul that is another such technical innovation. What it does is it effectively works on a GPS. So it again finds out where you are and what you are, and if there is an anti-wandering solution. A lot of anti-wandering solutions are built based on these devices and some of these technology development that have been done. There is Toshiba Silmi. This is again worn on the wrist. But what we have found and understood is a lot of these technical gadgets that you ask the patient to wear, they are not very happy with it. Some of them, for example, there are people like me who don't like a single thing on their body. Will not find a watch, no necklace, no ring, no nothing. There are, I'm sure, others like that. So if you ask me to wear something, the first thing, if I grow old and I'm 80 years, I'll rip it off and throw it away. That's how I'm going to behave for those of you who eventually might take care of me. I'm just giving you a warning. Right? So the next part is connectivity. In fact, this morning I just came from another conference called Activeageing. That's the one that I'm wearing. I met this very interesting lady. She's from the US. She runs a home care business called Home Instead. You can look them up. They are very big. They have 12,000 centers all over the world. And she was telling me they deliver 70 million hours of home care every year. And she was telling me that my patients don't need a lot of technology. They are very happy with the GrandPad. Has anyone of you seen the GrandPad? No? iPad? This is the iPad for the grandparents. That's why it's called the GrandPad. What it has is, in addition to simple things like big fonts, it has all the things that an elderly would need to run their life. So you can see some of the things they can do. They can make a call just by tapping the picture of their near and dear. They can view their family photos. They can look at and create a playlist on their own of the songs of 1960s and 70s that they were in love with, and they can listen to those. So it's pretty much a curated list of experiences that can be delivered using a GrandPad. That's what it does. In addition, what I was also told is that because a lot of the elderly are not internet savvy, their judgment is not very good. So they don't want them to fall prey to scamsters who send scam emails and phishing and all of that. So they have actually removed an internet connection in this. So this GrandPad has a server within the nursing home, and that's where the content is stored and distributed. So this is internet and yet not internet in many ways. So that's one, and then the other one is the QBGO, a similar platform. The only difference is this one can also order meals and transportation and everything else that you want. So suddenly you see technology is there, but technology also requires a slight adaptation for elderly in this case. I have a problem. My daughter laughs when she opens my phone because the font size is this big. I have to use my glasses without which I can't read anything. So slowly from there it is only going to get worse, is what we all know. Age never gets better, and it only gets worse. So that's what it will be at the end of the day for all of us. So we do need some of these technical and technology innovations to help us through. The second one is, the last one rather, is we're talking of management. Management is also very interesting. One of the things that researchers found is that a lot of caregivers go through stress because to them they have a list of things to do, and many of them are youngsters like yourself who are new or probably just entering, some of them entering just the workforce only in the past few years. So they're not much experience understanding what an elderly goes through. So this is a VR platform or a virtual reality platform. It actually makes them experience, if they were a dementia patient, what would their experience be with day-to-day life. Very powerful training tool for people to understand and also rationalize why an elderly behaves the way they behave. I'm sure you're taught a lot of things in your coursework, but this is slightly a more experiential way of learning it as well. So that's VR. This is my favorite. What you can do is, you see the man on the bike, he can keep on pedaling, and as they pedal, it also gives them the exercise that they want, so you can score that. It's a gamified version of that. But you see the big, huge mirror in front of that. It's a curated content. What you can do is, you can go back there, memory lane, and say, let's say, I used to live some 25 years ago in Dover. So you can capture how this Dover was in those days and recreate those. And as they go through it, it's more of a experience of their past age. This is very powerful as well. There's another interesting one that we've seen. Lastly, care robots. This is one that we see, and we had a very, what shall I say, enthusiastic discussion this morning about why robots should be used and where they should be used. So robots, before I get into some of these innovations, robots are basically looked at in three ways. There is an assisted robot that helps people with physical conditions. Then there is another one which talks about emotional intelligence and all of that, which is more social, right? So these are the kind of robots that are coming up. And lastly is an administrative robot. An administrative robot is one robot that will come and clean this place up, or it will bring your meals and things like that. So that's the kind of robot that are coming up. Paro is one of the most, not one of the most, it's probably a better known one. You see, that's the one. It's like a small white seal that you will see, and if you pamper it a little, it will make a nice sound, or if you pinch it a little, it will scream at you. So it will do all those things, very interactive, and it is the way animals will behave. So it has 5 kinds of sensors. The tactile, light, audition, temperature, and so on. So it's also for the caregivers to kind of introduce a new element of providing care to them. Robo-Ace is slightly more. It's it's also providing personal assistance for those who've been in the early diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and what it does is it tells them what to do next, where they are still able to follow some of those commands and understand and listen to instructions and do that. The last one is a telepresence robot. The telepresence is the one that people can talk to and speak to them. So you see the blue color thing, it will keep following you wherever you go. And so it's like a phone. If a phone rings, you don't want to have them walk there and pick it up. So this will be walking next to you, and you just look at it and it will open up and you can speak to them. So yeah, some people might feel it's a little funny, but it's only if it rings that it will come near you. It's not that it will follow you like that. So there are different kinds of they say different strokes for different folks, and that's what this is all about. All of them are not applicable in all these scenarios. Some are and some are not. Right? So in conclusion, technology can provide a lot of help. It's for us to choose what we want and what we don't want. But if you look at it broadly, my glasses on. The recreation and leisure, so some of these devices we spoke of, orientation and memory aids. Then there are safety monitors. You can cut off the cooker, for example, and fall detectors and all of these, and then communication devices that we can. But I think at the end of the day, in the technology sector, we are all extremely aware, at least I am acutely aware that technology is not a replacement. There can never be a replacement for a human touch. I have elderly parents, I know what it takes. Many times I speak to my father first, he'll ask me 10 questions, and then my mother will come and ask him the same 10 questions. My son gets angry with me saying that why are they asking the same thing over and over again? But I know that all that they want to do is to hear my voice on the phone. So sometimes these things are very different from just the way you would want to apply technology and solve a problem. So with that, thank you very much for your care.